Welcome back for another part of this story. A few days later, we see a red banner with insignia on it. We see our girl along with Ernest by her side, bidding farewell to Peony's family members. There is a man with a long blonde hair and a pink-haired prince sending our girl off. The blonde-haired man expresses his sadness about his sister's departure, or so he says. His face doesn't have any hint of longingness though. He is the first prince, Tudwig Fraken Isodium, or Tudwig for short. With a bright smile, Tudwig tells the couple to not worry about their safety because the royal guard will accompany them to the Dalton port. Peony smiles on the outside, responding to Tudwig's statement. But deep inside her mind, she knows that this is all formality. She thanks her brother for his kindness and worries about her safety. Meanwhile, all the noble women around started swooning at the sight of the handsome first prince. For our girl though, she doesn't find Tudwig's face attractive. All she sees is a face filled with greed. According to her, he is a greedy man who had everything in the world at his fingertips, but also tried to steal the legacies of other families. He might be connected to the incident with Gabby. Our girl theorizes this as well. The possibility of this turd to be the mastermind of Gabby's death is high likely. Peony stares at her brother with suspicions in her mind, but she tries her best not to make it apparent, while Ernest remains the same, cold and unwavering. Despite holding it together, our girl is really trembling inside, struggling to calm herself down. All she can do is clench her fist as hard as she could, while maintaining to pretend to be Peony. She reminds herself not to get caught up in her emotions and focus only on the bigger prey. The mindset she gained when she lived as Grand Duchess Equus is still alive inside her. Tudwig continues his self-righteous facade and states his regret for not being able to personally accompany his dear sister to the end. But he states that he felt relieved when he knew that the third prince would go with them. After all, they are both biological siblings from the same mother. He is pertaining to the pink-haired man beside him, and from the looks of it, he only forced this suggestion on his own, as the third prince looks surprised by this sudden turn of event. Our girl is aware that although they may be from the same mother, the third prince never loved her at all. The pink-haired man just looked away while Tudwig sells him off. Even though it is said that ensuring the proper arrival of goods in commercial lives in X is an important role, in reality, maybe that is something the third prince was forced into because he couldn't secure a suitable position in the imperial palace. Our girl starts assessing the third prince, Johannes Mimmel Isodium. According to her, his height and body size are decent. He is just 1 year older than Peony, so the age gap isn't that far. She wonders how long this pink cotton candy sweetness will endure in the Northern Navy. Tudwig tells Peony to live well and don't forget to correspond with her brother. Our girl responds that Peony will absolutely never forget about her eldest brother, to which the first prince praises her for. Our girl keeps on speaking about herself in third person because that is what the first prince told her to do, threatening her to keep speaking in third person. Tudwig grabbed Peony's shoulder, leaving her no choice but to comply. The lingering sensations within Peony's body evoke an eerie chill, prompting our protagonist to recollect the event. She muses that it might have been the first prince who propagated the rumors maligning Peony's intellect. Our villainous girl can't stand speaking in the absent form in front of so many people. She would rather die and drown in the water than do it, but she knows that she has no say in the matter. Peony grins, saying that there is something she must do later. She coughs to clear her throat, then address her brother, saying that Peony wants to thank him. Tudwig was caught off guard by our girl's sudden statement, asking what could she be thanking him for. Peony then states that it is all because of her brother that Peony was able to marry such a handsome husband, then proceeds to cling to Ernest. Our girl clearly has the riz. Our girl claps her hand as she remembers something. She spins around, showcasing her beautiful gown to her brother, saying that the dress is wonderful. Tudwig swiftly detected the substitution of fake pearls adorning his sister's attire. His widened eyes and the disappearance of his smile revealed a swift transformation from contentment to simmering anger. Observant spectators took note of the pearl discrepancy and began murmuring amongst themselves, unequivocally asserting that the pearls were undoubtedly counterfeit. As per their understanding, genuine pearls should shimmer with a spectrum of rainbow hues when exposed to sunlight. However, these pearls fail to exhibit such iridescence. The gossip then turns to the first prince. It is well known that Tudwig was the one assigned to buy the dress, and he also boasted that it has costed him a large amount of money to procure. However, despite the proclaimed grandeur, the embedded pearls are evidently counterfeit, leading the crowd to speculate that the first prince chose to economize on the fourth princess's wedding gown. This speculation arose due to the inferred connection between the two, stemming from sharing the same mother. The gossip continues, saying that even though the first prince said he would take care of Peony and watch over her, he still bought her a cheap dress, showing that all those concerns are just for show. Tudwig is basically biting his lips at this point from the extreme embarrassment. Johan sensed the foul mood of his older brother as well, causing him to sweat in nervousness. Meanwhile, our girl is clearly enjoying the ruckus she made, smiling from one ear to another. She decided that the first prince must experience embarrassment first before she leaves the palace. The situation was made worse because the first prince got embarrassed in his own camp. Getting ridiculed publicly like this is too much for him to bear, and that is exactly what our girl wants. Peony then notices something. The second prince isn't around, so she wonders where he could be. But for our girl, that's actually a good thing. Her hand suddenly starts shaking with the thoughts of the second prince, as if Peony's body is reacting on its own. In Peony's memories, she shuddered like a mouse thrown into a snake's den when she stood before the second prince, and although the first prince was the biggest jerk, her body only remembers fear, not the mind. Our girl is worried about Peony's body's reaction when she meets the second prince, worried that she might not be able to control her reaction despite her clear thinking. Peony abruptly notices Ernest take a quick glance at her, then frowns. She wonders if the perceptive Duke already has a clue about Peony's situation within her family. Tudwig calls his assistant, whom immediately responded. He tells the man that he specifically instructed him to adorn the dress with genuine pearls only. The assistant nervously explains that he has checked Peony's dress at least 4 or 5 times just to make sure, but it seems it was replaced after entering the imperial palace by the princess's maids. After hearing this, Tudwig just clicks his tongue and didn't utter any more words. We can be sure that those maids will get their dues. Meanwhile, our girl embraces Siona and asks her brother if she could bring her along, saying that she doesn't want any other maid except for Siona. The first prince responds, saying that he isn't sure if the maid would be a suitable gift for his little sister's wedding, but Peony states that she would absolutely love such present. Tudwig then walks closer to our girl and puts his hand on her shoulder. While wearing a sinister smile on his face, he wishes our girl to live a happy life. He then squeezes Peony's shoulder tightly and states that if her husband in any way tries to annoy her, she needs to make sure to send her older brother a message. Our girl knows the underlying threats of Tudwig's words, but she is more focused on her shoulder right now, that is aching because of the first prince's firm grip. Peony trembles in fear, but she knows that she mustn't show any weakness and must continue smiling all throughout the interaction. For her, this is all just a play. And besides, the main scene isn't over yet. Suddenly, Ernest came apologizing, then slaps away Tudwig's hand off of our girl's shoulder. The first prince and our girl were clearly taken aback by Ernest's brave gesture. Peony's eyes widened from shock. She didn't know that her husband cares about her this much. The Duke continues, saying that from now on, he will take good care of his wife, then proceeds to apologize once again to Tudwig for his rudeness. Our girl can't help but gaze by the valiant display of Ernest right in front of her. Meanwhile, the people around started gasping from the Duke's insolence, asking how dare Ernest put a hand on his majesty. But Ernest didn't care about their opinion, nor about the first prince's reaction. He just turned around with Peony in tow, and then bids his farewell. The Duke placed his hand on our girl's shoulder, but the sensation is different from what Tudwig did. According to our girl, she felt warmth and gentleness in Ernest's hand. At first, he seems indifferent, but he is actually not, and he cares about Peony more than he shows. In fact, he's a man who doesn't care about the formalities used in today's powers, though he's the type that won't care. Ernest maintains his ethics more aristocratically than anyone else in the place, so his earlier gesture can be interpreted as if he has announced to everyone that he would respect our girl in the future. Our girl places her hand on Ernest's, symbolizing that she accepts their marriage wholeheartedly. Peony blushes. Her heart hurts because it beats so hard at the presence of her husband. She takes a quick glance on her husband and thinks that when she ended her life as Gabby, she thought they would never meet again. For the past few days, she was worried that all of this was just an illusion, but not that they are together face to face without anyone interrupting them. She can't fathom what kind of miracle has been granted to her. She then looks away, prompting Ernest to ask if there is something on her mind. The Duke doesn't suspect Peony to be actually Gabby, but our girl doesn't mind. She just wants to spend her life once again with the man she loves. As they step into the carriage, Ernest tells the servant that it is time for their departure, to which the servant obediently follows. Our girl is reading too much about the situation. There are many other carriages, but Ernest decided to ride the same one as her. Like the hand the Duke offered her before getting into the carriage, it was also a kind gesture. From his perspective, there was no reason for them to share the same carriage, but it was clear that he wanted to be a barrier to protect the weak princess, making sure it doesn't fall into the hands of the vile first prince. While she's staring at him, she thinks that Ernest is really a man that she can't help but fall in love with. As she gazes upon the window, Peony thinks that she is finally free from the grasps of her evil brothers, free from the torment of the kingdom. Even though she has a new body, she is finally returning to her beloved land. She smiles as nostalgia hits her really hard, reminiscing about the memories from her life as Gabby. Then, she sees her reflection on the window. Even though it has been days to weeks that she has been integrated to Peony's body, it still surprises her how much her differ now compared when she was still Gabby. No matter how many times she sees it, she just can't get used to her current face. Her eyes that rise like a cat's, round eyebrows that counteract the sharp impression of the eyes, a light blush that reflects the freshness of a 23-year-old girl. She then touches her lips, saying that it's like the first day of spring. Peony wakes up from her little mind wandering, remembering that she is in the same carriage as Ernest. She then thinks about if it is possible for her to act so naturally cute and innocent, saying that it would be a bit difficult for her. It may be because Gabriella Nassirt was originally the villain, playing a cunning woman. At the moment, suddenly, some questions arose about Gabby's death. First off, who killed Gabby? This is something that Ernest has probably already investigated. She is not exactly sure, but given the situation, it is likely that it was the first prince or the second prince. He is not known to be cunning or dangerous enough to use such tactics though. Most importantly, the first prince is trying to win the battle for succession. He had a great interest in ancient treasure and divine relics. Considering that his target was the Essence Relic, it is very likely that the mastermind was the first prince, as the assailant tried to snatch Gabby's ring. Second question that comes to her mind is how she ended up in the future, and not in the past, and also in someone else's body. Normally, she should go back and use her knowledge about the future to get closer to her husband again. That is the typical development of a novel. Then it dawns her, maybe it is because she swallowed the relic. She thinks about researching more about the relic when she gets to X. For the third and last question, if she got reincarnated to Peony's body, then where could be the owner of the body went? Anyway, the most important thing for our girl is that she is Ernest's wife once again. And this time, she will never die and will live happily ever after with him. To achieve this time, she will make sure to hand over the certain thing she wasn't able to give Ernest before she died as Gabby. According to what she heard at the previous meeting, it is clear that Ernest hasn't gotten the thing yet, or if he did, maybe it had no effect. A part of our girl wants to sit down with the Duke right now and talk about it, but, as she expected, she still can't say that she is actually Gabby. No matter how hard she strains her throat to speak out the words, something is preventing her from talking. Left with no choice, she just stared at her husband and laments on her current situation. Even though Ernest is so close to him, she can't still reach him. The carriage continued their travel all the way to the land of the night, the Northern Sea. Peony enjoys the beautiful sight of the road ahead. The breeze is still fresh, making our girl remember that faithful day. The gentle waves are crashing against the shore, while Ernest carries our girl, Gabby, delicately on his back. Our girl can still remember every footprint he leaves for every step he takes on the sand. That was the day the two got closer to each other. No words were spoken between the two, yet the connection in their hearts was undeniably strong. The silence and calmness put Gabby at ease, add to the security that her husband provided. All that existed in that moment was Ernest and her. It is as if they were the only ones in the world. Our girl expresses her longingness for that moment. Our girl decides that she will release the restriction that's binding her from telling the truth, and one day inform her husband that she is actually Gabby in Peony's body. Then it hits her, she has heard something about a restriction before. She doesn't want to believe that it would be the case, but there is a possibility that it might be actually true. With that, I will conclude part 2 of this series. Now, what will happen next? Will our girl figure out about the restrictions? When will Ernest realize that Peony was Gabby? And lastly, what will our girl do to try to remind Ernest that she is his late wife? Tune in next time for this amazing story. And if you enjoyed this, I would gladly create another one. Thank you again for your support, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, it's our destiny to discover new manhwa.